Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at CQ action. CQ action. I'm your instructor, Cindy Lee. So finally, here comes our last video lecture, and today we will focus on our audio parts. Today we will talk about CQ action. CQ action is the final step of CQ development. If you are ready, let's start today's class. So first of all, let's look at CQ action. What is CQ action? CQ action is about changing verbal and nonverbal actions appropriately when interacting cross-culturally. Of course, it is about how to take action to carry out your CQ strategy. In the last lecture, we say CQ strategy is crucial because you need to apply your CQ knowledge. We plan for an intercultural encounter based on cultural knowledge. After forming a plan, then we take action. So how should we take action? Well, we can change verbal and nonverbal actions to adjust to the target culture. In the previous lectures, we have said that cultural adjustment doesn't require you to change your beliefs or values. What you need to do is to change behavior and take action to make the cultural adjustment. Here, we divide actions into two types, verbal ones and nonverbal ones. So later, we will talk more about them. Okay, now let's look at the next slide. Changing verbal and nonverbal actions appropriately when interacting cross-culturally. So now let's see what a global villager should do. Well, global villagers with a high CQ action can draw on the other three capabilities of a CQ to translate their enhanced motivation, understanding, and planning into action. CQ motivation means you are interested in interacting with others cross-culturally. However, if you don't put it into practice, motivation remains to be an interest. Therefore, taking action and going out to meet people is a key. When meeting people cross-culturally, having an interest or motivation is not sufficient. We have seen some people are passionate when meeting foreigners. However, some of them are ignorant about the target culture. They keep saying or doing something inappropriately. Although they appear friendly, they embarrass everyone on the spot. So if you watch TV news, you will see a lot of examples. For example, some enthusiastic tourists spent a lot of money traveling abroad. However, they shouted and spoke noisily in quiet villages. They were excited about their trip. They see beautiful scenery and local people. They're highly motivated, of course. They're highly motivated to go out, but they don't respect the local culture. They didn't care those beautiful places were local people's residences. So, if you were in their shoes, can you imagine people yelling, laughing, or speaking loudly outside your home? You must feel angry and annoyed, right? So do those residents. Not to mention some ignorant tourists even left their garbage in the place they had visited, and some ruined the heritage. Without proper CQ knowledge, strategy, and action, motivation alone may simply cause embarrassment or disturbance in an intercultural encounter. So, will you and I go for a business trip or on a holiday tour? We should cultivate our CQ, learn about the local culture before the trip, adjust our behaviors, and pay attention to appropriate verbal and nonverbal actions accordingly. Well, here I'm going to give you another example. For example, we can see some ambitious politicians. They may be popular among their fellows, but can make terrible mistakes internationally due to a lack of a CQ. Talking about an example, a few years ago, a famous politician in Taiwan received a group of Japanese officials. Well, in that case, he was late for his meeting. He may hold polychronic values and living habits, but the Japanese society is a monochronic culture, keeping rigid manners in punctuality. In a formal diplomatic situation, all the parties are expected to respect punctuality. When accommodating monochronic culture, you should not be late. So that politician made excuses and resulting in international embarrassment. In this case, the politician showed low CQ knowledge, CQ strategy, and CQ action, which eventually caused humiliation to not only his distinguished guest but also himself. With high CQ action, you can translate your enhanced motivation, understanding, and planning into action. You can make strategies to prepare for an intercultural encounter based on cultural knowledge and then take appropriate action. In other words, global villagers and good leaders with a high CQ action possess a good repertoire of behaviors that they can use depending on the context. Repertoire means a stock of skills or a range of abilities. Here, it means that people with a high CQ action can be flexible and know what to do according to the cross-cultural situation. They don't just use typical action to react to different conditions. Like the examples mentioned above, you may have a high-pitched voice in nature or be used to speaking loudly in your home culture. Nevertheless, you can also speak quietly and softly when necessary. So when you visit a place where quietness is valued, you can adjust to that environment and appreciate the local people's lifestyle. Or in your culture, you may be loose on time, often being late 5 to 10 minutes in your appointment with your close friends. You may be forgiven in Taiwan in that case, but this is too late in many other places. So in the politician's example, he was late by 1 hour, which was terrible for the Japanese people. Being late for an hour is almost impossible and unacceptable in Japanese culture. So we want to pay attention to that. With a high CQ action, a person can be patient and flexible in polychronic culture. However, they can also be on time, respecting punctuality in monochronic culture. This is what we say about the CQ action. It means possessing broader repertoire of behaviors, having the abilities, and demonstrating proper behaviors to adjust to different environments and requirements. Now let's look at slide 5, verbal communication skills. The first part, let's look at the left-hand side of this slide. When we talk about verbal actions, now let's learn the 10 essential verbal communication skills. So first, please look at the left-hand side of this slide. First skill, listen carefully. We should be well prepared to listen. We should concentrate on the conversation with the speaker rather than thinking about what we will reply to. Second, maintain eye contact. Try to maintain eye contact with the speaker during the conversation, either in a meeting or in personal talk. The proper eye contact depicts that how much we are interested in the speaker's thought. It is also a sign of appreciation for the speaker. Normally, Chinese speakers maintain eye contact for a shorter time when we speak to our counterparts, while Westerners tend to maintain eye contact for a longer time. You may want to practice how to maintain longer eye contact in the future. Third, avoid distractions. We should avoid any distractions during the communication, such as checking mobile phones or people passing nearby or opening and closing doors, etc. If there is a lot of noise, we can suggest moving to another place for communication. Well, in the polychronic culture, like a Taiwanese culture, people can be multitasking, doing several things at the same time. So we need to be careful because here we are in Taiwan, maybe we tend to be multitasking. This behavior may be regarded as rude in the monochronic culture. Therefore, if you are a polychronic person and you would like to accommodate your counterparts from monochronic culture, try to be more concentrated and avoid distractions when listening and speaking to monochronic people. Next one, do not interrupt the speaker. We should not interrupt the speaker in between the conversation. It seems like a disrespect for the speaker. Well, in some cultures, people are used to silence in a conversation, but in other cultures, turn-taking is more intensive. People welcome heated talks. Therefore, in that kind of culture, interruption is acceptable. So, for example, in Latin Europe or Latin American cultures, they are more comfortable with interruptions in heated talks. Therefore, you probably want to see the cultural background of your counterparts. Okay, the fifth one, be clear while speaking. Sometimes we require emotional energy to understand what another person wants to say. So try to always be clear while speaking and listening. If you find that your counterpart cannot understand your message, then perhaps you want to elaborate that and you want to say more about it. Okay, so this is the first 5 skills. Next, let's see the right hand side of the slide. On the top, you see the pink shape. First, we will talk about this skill. Focus on the nonverbal communication cues. We will talk more about this part later. Although verbal communication is communication using spoken words, however, we represent the information. How we represent the information is also crucial. Our facial expressions, body language, eye contact, etc. reflect our way of talking. Hence, nonverbal cues should not be avoided. Next, be confident. Confidence is also related to nonverbal cues, right? So far, you will find that a lot of verbal communication skills are closely related to nonverbal cues. Nonverbal behaviors are so important, maybe more important than verbal cues, or at least they are equally important. This is why CQ Action can decide whether your intercultural communication will be successful or not in the end. Coming back to the point of confidence, being confident while speaking is important. Do not think what others will say. Confidence depicts our abilities and importance to ourselves. The voice tone, body language, and awareness reflect our confidence during the discussion. Besides, be open-minded. We should avoid making judgment or comment about the speaker. This is particularly important in intercultural communication. Using the flexible thinking model, which you have learned at the beginning of the semester, to help yourself keep open-minded. Everyone has his perspective. Let's respect the views and thoughts of others. Okay, the next one, the orange box. Be a soft-spoken person. The people who talk politely with a smile on their face are more likable. This can apply to most situations worldwide. It makes the conversation more effective and also adds enjoyment to our lives. In some cultures, people only smile at and laugh with familiar friends. In other cultures, smiling at strangers or acquaintances is regarded as polite. You may want to see the culture where you visit to adjust your facial expressions, but in general, being soft-spoken can be a good start in most intercultural communication situations. Finally, represent the information in short. We should not add long stories to our discussion. It makes the listener bored or get distracted. Consider your ideas and information concisely. In some cultures, like Japanese and German cultures, people may prefer to hear precise and detailed figures and information. While in other cultures, people may prefer to have an overview plus some key points. So, you may want to adjust the content of your report according to your listeners' needs and wants. Nevertheless, when working internationally, time is precious. Apply CQ strategy and CQ action. Well plan your meeting to ensure that you can deliver your messages effectively. If time is limited, being concise will be even more crucial. Okay, now let's look at slide 6, Adapt your verbal action, part 1. On slide 6 in here, let's take a closer look at how to adapt your verbal action. We can adapt the verbal action by changing word choice in speech acts. Let's discuss word usage and speech acts in 5 aspects. On this slide, let's look at the first 2 aspects. The first one aspect. This is conversation topics. First, let's consider topics for intercultural small talk. There are appropriate and inappropriate topics. Well, we should prepare for appropriate topics for our small talk in cross-cultural encounters. Appropriate topics include recent business, your location or venue, entertainment, arts, traveling, food, hobbies, interests, sports, climate, weather, etc. For example, when you meet your counterpart at the beginning of the talk, you can start what happened most recently. For example, if your counterpart just came from a train station or airport, you may ask, "How was your journey?" Then, as the time of your talk goes by, you can extend the topic from the present time to the past or the future, from the general one to more personal hobbies or interests. Well, inappropriate topics include politics, religion, personal finances, personal appearance, death or illness, personal gossip, offensive jokes, and any other sensitive issues which may embarrass the counterparts. Next, you are advised to apply CQ strategy to prepare for the proper topics and avoid the inappropriate ones. Carry out the strategy to ensure that proper talks are well delivered. Note that in Taiwanese culture, for example, it may be appropriate to talk about families in the workplace with your new acquaintances or colleagues. But in Western cultures, personal topics are only limited to very close friends. So when preparing for your topics, consider the cultural dimensions such as collectivism versus individualism, high context culture versus low context culture, as well as indulgence versus restraint culture. Last but not least, apply conversational strategies when talking about the appropriate topics. These strategies include active listening, back-channeling, follow-up questions, extending your speaking term, QAAA, acknowledging others' ideas, and repairing breakdowns. Well, at the beginning of the semester, we have already talked about active listening. Active listening skills include how to inquiry, react, clarify, paraphrase, summarize, and give positive feedbacks. Back-channeling here means to react to the speaker's comment or speech. You may say, yes, I see, I like that too, or other simple replies. Asking follow-up questions means to use WH questions to explore the topics. You may ask why, where, how to encourage your counterpart to speak more. Extending your speaking turn, QAAA, here indicates a conversation process. A person asks a question, then the other person answers the question, adds a bit more information, and then asks a question back. This is a very useful conversation strategy to ensure that the conversation won't be dropped. The last strategy here is repairing breakdowns. Whenever you are not sure about what the counterpart says, try to clarify it. Finally, here comes your video for your reference. You will get more ideas about conversation strategies after watching this video. Now, with slide 7, that is your typical speech act, request. When making a request, you may consider direct versus indirect communication styles and large versus small power distance cultures to adjust your verbal action. No matter whether in everyday life or in the workplace, we often need other people's assistance. If people do not make a request properly, they will not get the assistance they want. What's more, misunderstanding may be caused. Let's see some examples on how to adjust verbal action in different cultures. For example, in low-context culture, where people communicate directly, when you make a request, speaking direct language is common. For example, in a shopping mall, you ask someone, "Where is the lipstick?" A manager may request his colleague run the budget report, or can you send me the information? These requests are all very direct. They are common in the direct culture and acceptable in large power distance culture where upper-ranking officers may say so to their subordinates. People won't regard these requests as rude. However, if you speak in this way in indirect culture or high context culture, all of these direct requests will be regarded as rude and even offensive. Especially in a large power distance culture, if a subordinate speaks directly in that way to an officer, the direct language would be regarded as unacceptable. In the indirect culture, people will make more polite requests. They will say, "Could you please help me find a lipstick? Could you please run the budget report? Would it be possible for you to send me the information?" Or, in a very polite way, "I wonder if you could send me the report by tomorrow noon. Thank you very much for your help." When adjusting the verbal action, not only the language choice, but also the tone and manner and the facial expressions will count. Now, with slide 7, that is your typical speech act, request. When making a request, you may consider direct versus indirect communication styles and large versus small power distance cultures to adjust your verbal action. No matter whether in everyday life or in the workplace, we often need other people's assistance. If people do not make a request properly, they will not get the assistance they want. What's more, misunderstanding may be caused. Let's see some examples on how to adjust verbal action in different cultures. For example, in low-context culture, where people communicate directly, when you make a request, speaking direct language is common. For example, in a shopping mall, you ask someone, "Where is the lipstick?" A manager may request his colleague run the budget report, or can you send me the information? These requests are all very direct. They are common in the direct culture and acceptable in large power distance culture where upper-ranking officers may say so to their subordinates. People won't regard these requests as rude. However, if you speak in this way in indirect culture or high context culture, all of these direct requests will be regarded as rude and even offensive. Especially in a large power distance culture, if a subordinate speaks directly in that way to an officer, the direct language would be regarded as unacceptable. In the indirect culture, people will make more polite requests. They will say, "Could you please help me find lipstick? Could you please run the budget report? Would it be possible for you to send me the information?" Or, in a very polite way, "I wonder if you could send me the report by tomorrow noon. Thank you very much for your help." When adjusting the verbal action, not only the language choice, but also the tone and manner and the facial expressions will count. Now let's look at slide 8, adjust your verbal action, more speech acts. On slide 8, let's see more speech acts, apologies, and compliment. First, let's look at number 3. Let's look at apologies. When making apologies, we need to think, what does sorry mean to the local people? How do people say sorry? When to say sorry? In some cultures, people tend to say sorry and thank you spontaneously and promptly. The wrong and right doings are acknowledged at the moment when the speech action is completed. However, in other cultures, people may say sorry or thank you later, but it doesn't mean that they don't care. They may just keep it in mind and express their feelings in other subtle ways. Before your intercultural encounter, try to gather relevant information and make that part of your CQ knowledge. Then make a plan for your encounter. This is CQ strategy. When you are in the real meeting, try to adjust to the new culture and say sorry or thank you accordingly. That would be your ability of CQ action. For example, in Taiwanese culture, we may not say 对不起 or 谢谢 so often in contrast to American culture. Some Taiwanese people may feel shy or embarrassed when saying 对不起, 谢谢 so formally. They tend to say 不好意思 more often. In American culture, people tend to say excuse me, sorry, thanks, and thank you much more often and quickly in contrast to Taiwanese people. So after you find this, you may want to adjust your verbal action in future cross-cultural encounter when necessary. Of course, you may visit other cultures, but at the time, your preparation will be the same. Next, let's discuss paying compliment. Point 4, compliment. Compliment means praises. When paying compliment to others, consider the following questions. How can you encourage or motivate people by paying compliment? Should you praise or criticize people publicly or privately? If you are praised, how should you accept or not accept a compliment? Here, you should consider individualism versus collectivism. In the individualistic culture, compliment, praises, and criticism can be direct and public. In the collective culture, compliment, praises, and criticism are expected to be collective or private. Finally, when delivering messages verbally, note the way of delivery. Point 5. Delivery suggests that you know the appropriate level of enthusiasm, pace, and style to use when talking to different audiences. In this aspect, consider the specific and contextual culture. For example, earlier we mentioned that a sales pitch may not work in the academic sector. And breaking one's own capability or achievement may not be trusted in the collective culture. So you want to pay attention to these intercultural differences. Now let's look at slide 9 about nonverbal action. Be careful about body language. So on slide 9, let's begin to discuss the nonverbal action. First, let's talk about body language. In communication, body language plays an important part. When we discuss the verbal communication skills in general, you will find that many skills are actually related to body language, right? So, what is body language exactly? Body language includes all the communications through the nonverbal channel. This can include how we greet others, how we sit or stand, our facial expressions, our clothes, hairstyles, tone of voice, eye movements, and how we listen, how we breathe, how close we stand to others, and how we touch others. Here, we will use the terms body language and nonverbal communication interchangeably. The well-known social anthropologist Edward Hall indicated that in a normal conversation, more than 65% of social meanings are transmitted through the nonverbal channel. It is said that Asians are more perceptive to body language than the North Americans. Any misuse of body language can be an unpleasant or even dangerous experience for message sender and encoders. Body language is an unspoken part of communication that we use to reveal our true feelings and to give our message more impact. Communication is made up of so much more than words. Nonverbal cues such as tone of voice, gestures, and posture all play their parts. On this slide, we can see more positive and some positive and negative body language examples. The slide shows you the general impressions of body language internationally, but please do remember that there are intercultural differences. Before you visit any specific country, you may want to study local taboos and manners. Now, please look at the pictures on the right side of this slide. If someone is exhibiting one or more of the following negative behaviors, they will likely be disengaged, disinterested, or unhappy. So please look at figure 1. Arms folded in front of the body, minimal or tense facial expression, body turned away from the other, eyes downcast, maintaining little contact. When working internationally, you may want to avoid such behavior. Other types of body language can indicate that someone is bored by what you are saying. This might be in a presentation, in a team meeting, or even a one-on-one chat. Here are some of the most common signs of boredom. Please look at figures 2 to 5. So here you will see sitting slumped with head downcast, gazing at something else or into space, fidgeting, picking at clothes or fiddling with the pens and phones, writing or doodling. Of course, browsing or using a smartphone in any meeting is not appropriate. Try to focus on the speaker when you are in a meeting. So please pay attention to these negative body language examples. If you can, when you have intercultural communication, try to avoid these negative body language. On slide 10, let's see general positive body language examples. People use their body language to convey positive feelings, such as trust, interest, and happiness. When you see these signs, You can know that others are engaged with what you're saying and at ease with the situation they are in. By adopting these behaviors yourself, you show confidence to support your point, convey ideas more clearly, and avoid sending mixed messages. Your nonverbal signs play a big part in people's first impression of you. Here are ways to appear trustworthy, engaged, confident, and calm. First, have an open posture. Be relaxed, but don't slouch. Sit or stand upright and place your hands by your side. Please see Figure 6. Avoid standing with your hands on your hips, as this will make you look aggressive or show a desire to dominate, like a Figure 7. Second, use a firm handshake, but don't get carried away. You don't want it to become awkward, aggressive, or painful for the other person. Next, maintain good eye contact. Try to hold the other person's gaze for a few seconds at a time. This will show them that you are sincere and engaged. But avoid turning it into a staring contest. So here you can look at Figure 8. Next, avoid touching your face when you are speaking, when you are in the communication process. If you do this while answering questions, for example, it can be seen as a sign of dishonesty. So please look at Figure 9. So try to avoid fiddling with your hair or scratching your nose so that you can convey trustworthiness in the communication process. Finally, smile. Warm, sincere smiles are attractive, reassuring, and infectious. Okay, so these are some of the positive language examples. Now, let us see positive language examples part 2. Positive body language can also help you to engage people, mask any presentation nerves, and project confidence when you speak in public. Here are a few tips to help you do this in a presentation or public speaking. First, have a positive posture. Sit or stand upright, with your shoulders back and your arms unfolded by your sides or in front of you. Please see Figure 10. Don't be tempted to put your hands in your pocket or to slouch, as this will make you look disinterested. Second, keep your head up. Your head should be upright. Please see Figure 11. If you lean too far forward or backward, can make you look aggressive or arrogant. Third, practice and perfect your posture. Stand in a relaxed manner with your weight evenly distributed. Keep one foot slightly in front of the other to keep yourself steady. You can see Figure 12. Last but not least, use open hand gestures. Spread your hands apart in front of you, with your palms facing slightly toward your audience. This indicates a willingness to communicate and share ideas. Please see Figure 13. Keep your upper arms close to your body. Take care to avoid overexpression, or people may focus more on your hands than your ideas. Slide 12. More on adjusting nonverbal action. Part 1. Check the intercultural differences. Next on Slide 12, let's study how to adjust nonverbal action a bit more. Generally speaking, you can see the previous discussion as international standard. The positive and negative body language examples can apply to most international settings when you travel internationally or meeting people from different parts of the world. However, if you like to accommodate a specific counterpart or fit in a particular culture, for example, seeing a good friend from a certain country or taking a trip to a specific destination, you may want to prepare for your intercultural encounter. As for CQ action, you should check the intercultural differences in the following aspects of nonverbal action. The first one, distance. Many of us have felt the discomfort that comes from someone violating what we consider to be appropriate personal space. For example, in Latin American and South European countries, friends and acquaintances may keep a much shorter distance than what we do here in Taiwan. Second, touching. The handshakes, though most widely used in Western contexts, has been broadly accepted in professional settings around the world as an appropriate greeting. But the degree of firmness of the handshake, the appropriate duration of the contact, and the individual who initiates it vary widely from one cultural context to another. The rules often go by different levels of authority, gender, and age when determining appropriate touching. These are international etiquette. In different countries, people have different ways of greeting. In Asia, for example, we bow when we meet people for the first time, or when we greet people, we do a lot of bowing. So bowing may be more common than handshaking. In some other countries, local people may kiss on the cheek. There are many ways of greeting. Handshaking surely is not the only way of greeting. So maybe you want to pay attention to the intercultural differences. Next one, body position. There are unwritten, often even unconscious cultural rules that govern the degree for how an individual sits, stands, and bows. In some contexts, people's gender, age, and level of authority all determine where they should position themselves in relation to others. Be wise to consider which of our postures should be altered. Before you visit a country, do check the do's and don'ts. For example, in Taiwan, although there is no written rule, we know that we should not put feet on the table. In other cultures, they also have such unwritten rules. When you can't get all the relevant knowledge, don't forget to observe local people carefully. Use a flexible thinking model and active listening skills to inquire about the local costumes, so that you know how to behave properly in their talkie culture. Slide 13, more on adjusting nonverbal action, part 2. Check the intercultural differences. Next, let's see other aspects and examples. Facial expressions. Smiling means happy. Different cultures have different interpretations on smile. Although we say smiling makes you look friendly, but in some cultures, smiling at strangers can be seen as suspicious. In other cultures, smiling means polite, not happy. The second one, eye contact. Different cultures have various norms about when and how long eye contact is appropriate. In general, eye contact is longer in the Western culture. Next one, gestures. People often use gestures to accompany things they are saying. It's especially difficult to understand gestures if you don't understand the language. CQ strategy is needed to discern whether a gesture is a reflection of a culture or of an individual. Try to observe local people for cues. For example, is placing hands in pockets during a presentation a good idea? The answer is depend. In some cultures, it is acceptable, but in other cultures, putting your hands in a pocket during your presentation can be regarded as rude or arrogant by the audience. You want to be very careful about this. Slide 14, conclusion of verbal and nonverbal actions. Now here with slide 14, let's have a brief conclusion of this session on verbal and nonverbal actions. For verbal communication, the verbal cues include your voice pitch, tone of speech, intonation, expression, voice volume, pausing, and clarity of delivery. In addition, your word choice and the sentence pattern you use also affect the meaning. You can make a cultural adjustment by changing any of these verbal cues to enhance the result of your intercultural communication. At the same time, your body language is equally important. Try to demonstrate positive body language and pay attention to the intercultural differences in the nonverbal cues such as distance, touching, body position, facial expressions, eye contact, and gestures. Here on this slide, you can see good and poor posture. Try to practice the good body posture and positive body language to increase your personal confidence and CQ action abilities. Next, please watch a video to learn about gestures around the world. The video will be short and interesting. To enhance CQ action, try to lead and manage differently. Part 1. To enhance CQ action abilities, you can lead and manage differently in the workplace. You can also consider the following things in daily communication to improve communication results. 1. Negotiating goal. Is your negotiation result based on a contract or relationship? For example, in high context and collective cultures, the relationship will come first. In low context and individualistic cultures, contract is everything for cooperation. 2. Negotiating attitude. Win-lose or win-win. Win-lose is the result of a competition. In masculine culture, for example, the win-lose result is expected. In feminine culture, people may prefer to see win-win result. 3. Personal style, informal or formal. In large power distance culture, people tend to be formal in the workplace. People treat their business partners according to their ranking, social status, age, etc. In small power distance culture, people are equal to each other and the informal style becomes common. 4. Communication, direct or indirect. This aspect is related to high or low context culture. When leading or managing people cross-culturally, adjust your communication style accordingly. 5. Sensitivity to time, high or low. This aspect is related to mono or polychronic cultures. In monochronic culture, people are sensitive to time. When you make an appointment, you must be precise and punctual to the meeting. Slide 17. To enhance CQ action, try to lead and manage differently. Part 2. 6. Emotionalism, high or low. In a culture of a high emotionalism, people reveal their emotions publicly and do not hesitate to share their feelings. They may appear impulsive or irrational, but they can also be very friendly and passionate. People of low emotionalism do not reveal emotions publicly. On the contrary, low emotionalism values rationality, reason, and calmness. A leader or manager being too emotional may be seen as childish or incompetent. So far, you can see that the people from different cultures have different values and even opposite judgment about the same thing. Leading, managing, and getting along with people differently with your cultural adjustment and sensitivity is a sign of your CQ. 7. Form of agreement, general or specific. People work with each other based on mutual trust and long-term relationships. They may be from high context, long-term orientation, or collective culture. 8. Building an agreement, bottom-up or top-down. If you are used to giving orders and making decisions alone in the organization, you may want to observe the new organizational culture. In some cultures, everyone has a say and is equal to each other. If you force them to accept your ideas to form an agreement, that may result in conflict. 9. Team organization. One leader or group consensus. Consider individualism versus collectivism culture, as well as large power or small power distance culture. Try to find a balance between your tendency and the organizational culture. 10. Risk-taking, high or low. This aspect is related to uncertainty, tolerance, or avoidance. If your counterparts or people around you can take high risks, but you don't, then your contingency plans and many evaluations may be seen as slow movement and unnecessary. If your counterparts tend to take low risk, they will prefer to have detailed contingency plan. Also, you will need more time to persuade them to accept an innovative approach. Adjust your communication style and content accordingly. Your CQ action will help you achieve your communication goals. Know when to adapt and when not to adapt. Finally, an important thing about CQ action is to know when to adapt and when not. The first idea is to evaluate the target culture. Is this a tight or loose culture? For example, loose cultures include Thailand and the Netherlands, and tight cultures are like Saudi Arabia and Japan. In loose cultures, people are more tolerant to differences, while in tight cultures, you are advised to adapt. Otherwise, the local people may not accept you as their insiders. Second, consider this. Will adaptation compromise your organization or yourself? If you don't wish to be compromised, you will need to think about these two questions. What is your core value as you? What is your bottom line? When adapting, you don't need to give away your core values. You should keep your bottom line. Last but not least, in most international situations, following international etiquette is a good idea. When you plan to stay in a specific country for a longer time, or you like to accommodate a target culture or particular counterparts, then don't forget to check the local costumes and all the intercultural differences as mentioned above. So then you will know how to adjust and to what degree you would like to adapt that target culture. So this will be the end of today's lecture, and I hope you have already learned a lot. Thank you for your listening. Bye.